moving on to more, I guess, like general themes. So one of the things, there's a lot in this book that you discuss. You touch on a lot of different issues, and I'm sure we could talk for a long time about them. But I picked out kind of a couple of main ones that I thought were interesting just to ask you about. And the first was just, there seems to be, with most of the characters, but I guess mainly Akorfa and Selassie, this constant conflict between the choices that we make ourselves because of what we feel we should make, what we feel we want to do or we desire to do, and then the inherited kind of patterns and what we feel we should do from society. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts a little bit more about that conflict, both how you approached it in the book, but also, I guess, more in a Ghanaian context, what you think. Do you think the book suggests that there's some hope that could change, that those inherited patterns could potentially become less of a burden on your characters? Is that something you were looking to explore?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is something that I explore in both of my books, As Only Wife and now Night Bloom, and how it is that the demands that society makes of us, that our families, place on us, how these things then constrain us and just make it harder for us to be true to ourselves. And, and I think you find this everywhere, but to different degrees. I think Ghana is a place where the individual is often required to subordinate themselves, their desires, their dreams to the collective, the family, especially.
Yeah.
And that can just be really difficult in that it often requires sacrifices that are quite unfair in some cases. And, family is extremely important. I think if it's community is extremely important, especially if you live in a place where you can't necessarily rely on the state to do things for you. But at the same time, it's binding and often not in a good way, or sometimes not in a good way. So in Night Bloom, for example, we see, despite how unhappy Selassie is with her experience in Akorfa's house, her father is still saying, you should be grateful to them. And, other members of the family saying, no, you should still be close to them. And she's saying, no, I do not like the way they treated me as a child, and I don't have to be nice to them. And her father's like, well, they are family. And so it's that kind of thing that I'm really keen to explore in my writing. And I mean, I've been asking myself this question. I mean, I've been talking to other Ghanaians and wondering whether things are changing.
Yeah.
Are we gradually getting to a place where people feel less responsible for others? And that's not necessarily a good thing. You don't want to be an individualist where life is only about you, but also you don't want to live in a way that your life is constantly about making sacrifices for others. And I think as Ghana changes, we're having a larger middle class. I mean, the middle class is growing. People have all of these aspirations, and people want their children to go to the best private schools, and as we see in the book, they want their kids to go to Harvard and all of that. I think that is definitely causing people to be more inward looking, focusing on the nuclear family as opposed to this large extended family. But at the same time, the larger extended family, the community remains extremely important, I think.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. I think I couldn't, probably not a good thing to say, but I couldn't figure out how to even put this into a question. But one of the things, there was a lot of like, it felt like a lot of performance and a lot of duty. So a lot of almost people masking that. You kind of we're always thinking, is this what they want to do? Is this just what they're acting? And also whether it's calculated because they know that that's not the right thing to do, so they put on this mask to do what's right, or whether it's almost like a subconscious thing that is just ingrained in, no, we don't do that. That's not something I'm going to do. Is that something you've thought about, whether it's a conscious or conscious act?
I think there's a degree of performance. But I think all of us, we're all performing to some degree really in our lives.
Yeah.
And the performance, the level of performance can increase or decrease depending on the company in which you find yourself and how you want to impress people and all of that. But I do think that there is, when you think about people's relationships with the family and with the extended family, with the community, I definitely think there is some performance of, what it means to be, I mean, if you take something being a woman, for example, or a young woman, what it means to be a young woman and what is expected of you. But also, I also think that people also feel these things very strongly. And people feel strongly that this is how one should behave. And I've spoken about writing about disrespectful women and enjoying writing about disrespectful women. And these are basically women who might say, I will no longer perform in a certain way. And so, and I talk about disrespect because at least when I was younger in Ghana, you'd hear about, oh, this woman does not respect, she doesn't respect. And when you dig deeper, it's not the standard definition or the standard usage of respect. It is really saying this woman does what she thinks is right. She speaks up for herself. She takes no nonsense, and so she is disrespectful. And you find that this demand of respect is not being made of men in the same way. I have, I've tried to remember and haven't been able to remember a single instance where a man has been told, you need to respect this woman, right? But women are always being told to be respectful. Wives should be respectful to their husbands. And maybe for some people that part is, I think it's definitely a performance, because I think a lot of people are not happy with this imbalance in how with the women often are the ones being asked to be respectful, and often it's in quite unpleasant conditions, and the man isn't being asked to be respectful. So I think that would require some level of performance, at least until one says, I can't perform anymore.
Yeah.